With Lucky Land Slots, you can get lucky just about anywhere.
Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to... Has anyone seen the bride and groom?
Sorry, we're here. We were getting lucky in the limo and we lost track of time.
No, Lucky Land Casino, with cash prizes that add up quicker than a guest registry.
In that case, I pronounce you lucky.
Play for free at LuckyLandSlots.com. Daily bonuses are waiting. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+. Terms and conditions apply. See website for details.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 1.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm back. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the fruited plain of America, and I haven't crashed yet. I haven't. I'm going to at some point. So I knew I could pull it off. I just didn't realize how exhausting it would be. On Friday and Saturday, I interviewed, it was 8 hours both days of me on stage, interviewing people. Now, I asked open-ended questions, and some of them talked more than others. Vivek Ramaswamy is, I did kind of feel like I've seen it going around ChatGPT. He just could, spit out 15 minutes of something, and it's hard to get a word in edgewise there. Nice guy. Didn't agree with his foreign policy vision, but nice guy, made some great points. It was nice to get to meet him in person. And Ron DeSantis, of course. Now, I know and have met several times and am friends with Nikki Haley and Mike Pence and Tim Scott. And I know Chris Christie. It was nice. It was nice to have these conversations on stage with candidates running for president and others. Governor Glenn Youngkin, Governor Brian Kemp, Congressman Rich McCormick, Congressman Chip Roy, Senator Joni Ernst, Senator Tom Cotton. It was fantastic to have these conversations with these candidates and these elected officials, and you didn't have to ask about indictments, didn't have to ask about Donald Trump being at the debate. And I did ask some of those questions, but it was remarkable. And, we actually had reporters. If you want to understand the landscape that we're going into right now in this country and the frustrations that people have as we try to, even just make the case for running for president or whatnot, I thought it was very, very notable that when I made it clear my intention was not to ask candidates running for president about Donald Trump, I was going to ask about them. Several media outlets complained and said, well, we're not going to cover your event if you're not going to ask about Donald Trump. And they ultimately all wound up covering, which is why I'm not going to name names. But I was kind of, I thought it was very funny. We weren't going to talk about Donald Trump. We were going to let the candidates talk about their positions. And these media outlets were like, well, we're not going to cover your event. They wound up covering the event. They wound up liking the event. They wound up learning things about the candidates that they did not know. But almost all of the media coverage, so much of the media coverage, wound up being about Donald Trump and the perceived slights towards Donald Trump. There were some profound news-making things said. I'll get to those here in a minute. But it was... It was remarkable the amount of media coverage that couldn't exist in this but for Donald Trump, even though we didn't really even talk about him on stage. That's how you need to understand the way the media intends to play this game. But let's get into some of this. This is how Fox News, all the media is. Let me put this in perspective for you. So we had 1,000 people, 100 members of the press, 6 countries in the press represented. We had people from literally every one of my radio affiliates. Those of you who are listening on in New England, if you're listening on WICC in Bridgeport or WTIC in Hartford, I met some of you guys at the conference, and I was kind of flabbergasted because y'all are some of my newest stations. And y'all came down. WFTL down in South Florida, we had numerous people from South Florida who listened to me on that station, and it was great to meet them. WORD in Greenville, South Carolina. We even had people from Arizona and from Oregon. There was one couple from Kalispell, Montana, and I'm on the radio there, and I'm on the weekend too. So I'm not on the weekdays out in Kalispell and on KJJR, but we had people from there. We had people who came from KYKN in Salem, Oregon. We had people from Springfield, Illinois, where I'm on the radio there on WMAY. All over the country, we had people who showed up. And it was great to be able to bring my radio audience and my online audience together in person to hear up close and personal from these candidates. And the media coverage I was actually genuinely astonished. Here's how Brett Baer on Friday night started his program.
Karen and I look at the devastation in this country. When we look at the way Joe Biden has weakened America at home and abroad, we just couldn't sit this one out.
You don't print and spend trillions of dollars leading to 16% inflation and then do a tour of the nation talking about how good your economic policies have been.
We're going to unleash all of our domestic energy production here in the United States, and we're going to be energy independent again.
I have been a two-term governor that took a double-digit unemployment state and turned it into an economic powerhouse.
Candidates on the Republican side down there in Atlanta with Eric Erickson, a Q&A today.
That was just, it was great. It was fantastic. Now, I want to play you some of the audio so that those of you who couldn't attend, and next year we're going to try to restructure to get even more people into the room, but still there's millions of you nationwide and you can't all fit into the room. So I want to play some of this. And I got to tell you, the most impactful, powerful moment was this from Nikki Haley. Her son, her husband, Michael, is active duty in the military. In fact, she just a few weeks ago had to pack him up and send him overseas to a country he's never been to on behalf of the United States. And I asked her about taking care of the military. The number one question, the crowd got to submit questions, and I wove them into my questions that I wanted to ask. And the number one question, we had hundreds and hundreds of questions submitted. The number one question was about the military and veterans. That was the number one issue asked. Number two was economic. Number one was the military. And regardless of who your favorite candidate is or is not, this answer was the thing that people kept talking about throughout the weekend.
I think the first thing we have to talk about is the fact that my parents raised me to take care of those who take care of you. And I'll ask you if we're taking care of those who take care of us. Today, 33,000 veterans are homeless in this country. 1 in 3 of our heroes suffers from PTSD or thoughts of suicide. We lose 22 heroes a day to suicide. If a veteran needs to get a doctor's appointment at the VA hospital, on average, it takes 29 days. Why 29 days? Because on the 30th day, they can go to the doctor or hospital of their choice. So halfway through the 29 days, they get a call to reschedule, and the clock starts all over again. It's shameful how we treat our veterans. So what I can tell you is it's also important that we understand on TV, you love to see when our soldiers come home and it's a blessed day and having our families get back together. But the real work, Eric, is when we actually get home. The transition is tough. When Michael came home from Afghanistan, he couldn't hear loud noises. He couldn't be in crowds. Life had passed him by for the year that he was gone, and he didn't know how to transition in. We can't just love our military members when they're gone. We have to love them when they come back, too. And so the way that I think we deal with it is we should make sure that we have telehealth so that they can get the mental help they need right when they need it. We should make sure they can go to the doctor and hospital of their choice. They have earned that right. We should make sure that their spouses are taken care of so that they never have to worry that their spouse is going to be left alone without any care. And the way that I will personally make sure that we fight this fight is I think every member of Congress should have to get their health care from the VA. And you watch how fast that gets fixed.
Amen. She's got a point there. I've long wondered why we haven't done that. That was one of the most impactful moments on stage. But there were lots of good ones. It was a Chip Roy fan club. For those of you who don't know who Chip Roy is, Chip Roy, congressman from Texas, longtime friend of my wife and mine. Whenever I go out to Austin, his district stretches between San Antonio and Austin. They live outside of Austin. He worked for Ted. He was Ted Cruz's original chief of staff. He worked for Rick Perry. Worked in as the deputy attorney general of Texas for a while. He is a principled conservative, and it was like the Chip Roy fan club. Almost every single person on stage referenced him at one point. I think it puts him as one of like the intellectual thought leaders of the conservative movement right now. Let me just play you some of this. This is from Chip. I actually didn't interview him on stage. My friend Akash did. Americans for Prosperity was sponsoring. They were able to help coordinate Chip's schedule to get him there. But you need to first understand that the thing that fires him up most passionately these days is the out of control federal bureaucracy and the administrative state and how it sucks out our freedom. Well, listen.
We've got a few more minutes. I want to ask you about a trend on the right, which I find very concerning, which is that everyone recognizes what the left is doing with the administrative state. Yeah. There are some voices on the right who say, well, instead of trying to shrink the administrative state, we should do what the left is doing. We should take it, use it as a tool, use it as a weapon to advance our own conservative values. What do you make of that line of thinking? Can conservatives weaponize the administrative state, or should we be focused, as you were saying, of shrinking it and getting it out of our lives?
Yeah, show me the great free societies where you've empowered the administrative and bureaucratic state to the benefit of freedom. Yeah. There ain't one. Doesn't happen. Look, I get in my car, my rental car at this just wonderful airport here in Atlanta. As I'm leaving to come up here to Buckhead, which I'm still remembering the Buckhead of my youth out of college, and coming up to whatever the $3 cafe and having beers, and now I'm running around Buckhead. Anyway, whatever. I'm just getting distracted. But I get my car, and and it's this rental car, and then you change lanes. If it beeps at you, and then it's trying to tell you what to do, and then it's making noise. Oh no, there's a thing, and then it actually starts letting off the gas, and it's like, what are you doing? Like, stop it. And, I joke, but I find that to be extremely problematic. Yeah. They are about to control every aspect of your existence in your life. And I have a Jeep Wrangler. It's like 20-something years old. It's not quite old enough to be free from some electronics, but it's almost free of it. And, the one thing it would do is beep at me if I didn't have my seatbelt on. So I pulled the fuse out so it won't beep at me, right? And so every once in a while, if I'm driving it around and I pull out, it happens if I'm at the airport and park in the parking garage. You pull out of the parking garage, you have your headlights on during the day. I go to some restaurant and meet somebody and leave the headlights on because it doesn't beep at me because the same fuse controls those lights. And I come out and it's dead. Now that's happened like maybe, once or twice a year. It kind of happens probably. And every time I just, my friend who might come over to jumpstart it or something, I say, that's just the price of freedom. Because I don't like being told what to do. I just don't. I wear my seatbelt, but I wear my seatbelt when I damn well please as a free American. And so look, my point is just this. They literally want to have, whether it's a central, digital currency, whether it's cars that are battery powered with chips in it that they can control when you drive it and how you drive it. In California recently, they were trying to save the grid and the strain of the day by cutting down the charging stations for the cars. Well, I'm sure that's really helpful if you've got to go to your job and you can't charge your car so Californians can preserve their ridiculous energy grid. Yet that's where we're headed. And it ain't just California. Texas is 50% wind and solar, folks. Just yesterday, we were getting warnings because it was a windless day. Guess what happens on a windless day? You need gas. You need nuclear. You need actual reliable power. They don't care. To your question, do you want to empower bureaucrats because you think there's going to be these magical conservative bureaucrats? They're going to come in and grant you freedom? Because guess what? I don't need a conservative bureaucrat to grant me freedom. I'm supposed to just be free.
Yeah. Amen. Amen. Amen and amen. That's my buddy Congressman Chip Roy. We got a lot of people making news this weekend in Atlanta with so many of you in the crowd. It was so delightful to be able to hang out with so many of you. We'll be back. I am a small businessman. The company that I run for my radio show, it's a small business. I've got employees. I don't have HR. You may be in that situation and you may really need HR. Well, You may want to talk to Bambi. When running a business, your employees can create all sorts of interesting situations and they could get you in trouble. What happens when two employees are squabbling? One of them smells bad all the time. What do you do? How do you navigate the rules? With Bambi, you get access to your own dedicated HR manager starting at just $99 a month. They're available by phone, email, real-time chat. Onboarding and terminations run smoothly. Team members reach peak performance. Your business stays compliant with changing HR regulations. Let Bambi handle your employees for you. Their HR autopilot automates important HR practices like setting policies, training, and feedback. Listen, you want U.S.-based HR managers who give you experience, expertise, a personal touch you need to make it seem like they're a part of your team. They could cost $80,000 a year, but Bambi starts at $99 a month. Schedule your free conversation today to see how much Bambi can take off your plate. Go to Bambi.com right now. Type in Eric Erickson under podcast when you sign up. It'll help you. It'll help your company grow. It'll help you keep peace of mind. It's spelled B-A-M-B-E-E. BAM, B-E-E.com. Bambi.com. Type in Eric Erickson. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone number, if you want to be a part of the program, 877-973-7425. The very first guest at the gathering on Friday, Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina. Listen to some of what he had to say.
I won because of the evolution of the American heart. People judged me on the content of my character, not the color of my skin. We need to get that right and tell the whole story of American progress. That's why I'm so excited to go on shows like The View or have one of my first town halls in a black church in a small town. I want people to understand that conservatism works. It doesn't work for the rich, it doesn't work for the poor, it doesn't work for the black, it doesn't work for the white. It works for America because we're applying judicial Christian foundations and principles, and when they permeate the soils of our land, the greatest things happen.
Amen. I mean, the guy just really, he's passionate. I will say one of the interesting criticisms was that he comes across as too nice. I wasn't expecting that, but it was almost, they said he comes across as too nice. But he also understands some of the problems going on in the country and in the military. And again, we had a lot of conversation unexpectedly, wasn't planning on it, about the military because there were so many people from the crowd who had questions. Listen to this about the military and cultural and social experiments therein.
Yes. Well, we have a significant problem from a military perspective. Perhaps the number one problem that I see coming out of the Biden administration is that too often our men and women in uniform are distracted and unfocused because the leadership of this country is experimenting on our military. We have to eliminate all experimentation, whether it's vaccines or ESG or DEI or gender issues. We need to have one focus for our military, and that focus must be lethality. We have to be lethal. That is the focus. If we have the fiercest fighting force on God's green earth, go win the war and come back safe. And we are not giving our men and women the focus they need because the leadership is so distracted by all the cultural and social issues that they can't focus on the primary responsibility.
Here's a great answer. A lot of similar sentiment out there from the others on stage. Now, we've got more when we come back. Mike Pence, Nikki Haley, Chris Christie, Vivek, I got to pronounce this right. Vivek, the Vivek. It rhymes with cake, he said, and it's a hard E, so Vivek Ramaswamy. And then Ron DeSantis as well. Plus Glenn Youngkin was there, and Brian Kemp too. Lots of audio, including what Kemp said about the indictment in Georgia. Right now, I got to tell you, you got to get your Walking Liberty $50, y'all. I am told they got a limited supply here. You need to call Swiss America at 800-289-2646 or go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric. You got to mention me. You can get a Walking Liberty $50, beautiful silver coin for $13.50 each. It's not just a collector's item. It's an investment, a precious metal investment. 250 coins per customer limit while supplies last. They are beautiful. I've got one. Go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric or 800-289-2646. 800-289-2646. You can call or text, so you can text them, Eric, at 800-289-2646. Message data rates may apply. Or go to SwissAmerica.com/Eric. Get your Walking Liberty $50. They're gorgeous. A great way to get started in precious metal investing. Did you know China has made it a priority to teach students financial literacy starting in preschool? Financial literacy isn't taught in our elementary schools, and parents lack the resources to teach it at home. American kids are yet again being left behind. Now there's a great way for parents and grandparents to help the kids they love learn about finance, thanks to the Sensibles. And at bcs-kids.com. The Sensibles are a team of animated superheroes who help kids age 6 to 12 develop smart money habits in a fun way. bcs-kids.com was created to channel this multimedia resource to kids everywhere. Buy a subscription for your loved ones, and each month they'll get a Sensibles kit in the mail with an entertaining DVD, comic book, and activities. Digital subscriptions are also available. They'll also get access to an interactive website with a library of lessons, fun activities, and more. Want 20% off the monthly subscription costs? Visit at bcs-kids.com. Enter the promo code ERIC, my name, ERICK. It's the sensible thing to do. Subscribe today at bcs-kids.com. Greetings, welcome. It is Eric Erickson here. The phone lines are open, 877-973-7425. If you want to be on the program, we're playing some audio here from the gathering this weekend in Atlanta, where it's in the past, I started them at Red State. It was the Red State Gathering. Maybe I need to come up with a new name for it. But then when I started the Resurgent, we called it the Resurgent Gathering. Now it's the Eric Erickson Show Gathering. And I couldn't come up with a better name. I'll tell you the history of this was when I was at Red State, we'd been going for about 5 years, and I put up a post one day and said, hey, who wants to just come to Atlanta and grab a beer? We've never, all of us, met in person. And a couple thousand people said yes. About 500 people wound up coming at the time. We did it actually at the Grand Hyatt in Buckhead in Atlanta, where we did this year's conference. And it just kind of became a thing every year. It just kept growing and growing and growing. And this year, it was great to have 6 of the presidential candidates, multiple governors and senators and congressmen, and thought leaders on the right. And the whole idea is to bring you guys up close and personal. The number of you, though, who came and said, I can't believe it was so cheap, you should raise your rates. Yeah, we probably need to. But the job, it's always been to bring my listeners and readers together in person to hear up close and personal from thought leaders on the right. It's never been to make money. It's never been a profit center. I don't want it to become that. And there's all sorts of pressure from others to try to make it some big revenue generator, but that's not the purpose of it. It's not to charge you a lot of money and make money off of you. It's to get you up close and personal, for one, with me to be able to meet you guys in person, but 2, to get you in the room with the thought leaders of the right. And I think we succeeded in that. The feedback has been very good, very kind. One more from Tim Scott making the economic case against Joe Biden. It was one of the nice things about the conference, not making these guys constantly have to respond to the indictments on Donald Trump. They could focus on Joe Biden.
The average American family has lost $10,000 of spending power because of Bidenomics. When your gas is 40% higher, and your food is 20% higher, and your electricity costs you an extra $2,000 a year. A single mom like the one that raised me, or a senior on a fixed income, that's called a crisis. Washington doesn't understand that. They're so insulated. When the government under President Biden sets its budget to spend 40% more than they take in, it tells you that you're living in an unreal place. It's an illusion. The average American.
It was a great response from Tim Scott, who did great. One last one from him before we move on to the other candidates.
Because we're Americans, we can do the most remarkable things because I believe and understand American exceptionalism. When we focus on that, when I'm on the campaign trail having a conversation about the challenges that we face from a military standpoint, from an economic standpoint, I am thanking God that I had a chance to live the whole story of who we are as a nation. I thank God that I'm in a place now where we can fight for the next American century. That is worth everything. And I will say that the way I run my campaign, will continue to run our campaign, is by putting the mission ahead of the position. Our mission is to restore hope and create opportunities.
That was Tim Scott, Senator from South Carolina. Some great answers. We also talked to, I talked to Mike Pence on stage about, his view of the country. I got to say, in all honesty, one of the things that actually did kind of shock me, I guess, is I asked him fairly point blank, because he refers oftentimes to his record and the Trump administration record. And I did say, Mr. Vice President, respectfully, you keep bringing up the Trump administration's record, which raises the question of why should voters vote for you instead of reelecting Donald Trump? And I didn't think he had a very strong answer there, and he needs to work on it. But this is a part of him focusing on entitlement reform. He's one of the few brave souls willing to take on this issue.
I mean, we have a debt today the size of our nation's economy for the first time since World War II. And more than 70% of all federal spending is in Social Security and Medicare. Now, Joe Biden's policy is insolvency. He won't even talk about common sense reforms for younger Americans of these long-term entitlement programs. And frankly, my former running mate's policy is identical to Joe Biden's. They won't even talk about it. There's other people that'll be on that debate stage next Wednesday night that have said literally that reforming government spending is somebody else's problem, some other president's problem.
He wants to do it. He says 40 years old, that for people who are 40 and younger, we'll begin a transition into private accounts that earn a higher rate of return. But if you're over 40, we're not going to touch you. You'll get Social Security as we know it today. And we probably need to means test it. Someone like Warren Buffett or Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg doesn't need Social Security, so why pay it to them? A little more from Mike Pence, and this kind of got into some of the differences and on the question of why vote for you over other candidates.
You know, I always stood loyally by President Donald Trump until my oath to the Constitution required me to do otherwise. But my differences with the president go far beyond that fateful day. And I hope to have a chance to debate him with him. Sometimes people ask me, how do you envision debating Donald Trump? And I say, I've debated Donald Trump 1,000 times, just not with the cameras on. But look, we have real differences about the future of the country as well.
Mike Pence on stage talking. After Mike Pence, we got to talk to Brian Kemp, and he made some news, and I don't think that it is that people appreciate enough the things that Governor Kemp said, in particular about the Trump indictment. Everyone obsessed about a Trump indictment in Georgia and when it will happen. Brian Kemp, for some very good reasons, is very insistent that there's no way it's going to go to trial before the election. And his point, if you understand the calendar, the criminal calendar in Georgia, he's on the money here because of the way it's the way the calendar works for the courts and the backup and flow of the courts.
One thing is certain about these indictments, in my mind, in my opinion, this trial, despite what dates anybody's asking for or anything else, it is not going to happen before the election. And the Democrats want us to be focused on things like this. So we're not focused on Joe Biden's record.
He's right. He's absolutely right. He made a very strong and persuasive case, in fact, that we've got to focus and try to find somebody who can win the general election. This, again, Governor of Georgia, Brian Kemp.
But really, you get to put the eraser to all the bad things that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the Democrats have done in Washington, D.C., and really get back to focusing on things that we know that we can change so very quickly with the right person in the White House, securing the border, restoring our military to where it needs to be, not picking winners and losers with the Inflation Reduction Act, getting our federal spending under control, just all these, dealing with 40-year high inflation, all these things that just frustrate people. It's insanity that we're having to deal with this. It should be such an easy path for us to win the White House back. But if we are looking in the rearview mirror, and this is what my message has been to every candidate in the race, including former President Trump, and I first said this in Nashville at the RNC donor retreat, is we have to be focused on the future, not something that happened 3 years ago. We don't need to be focusing on stupid things that aren't going to happen before this election. We can deal with that later, after we win. We have to tell people what we are for. And then we have to have a candidate that can win the election, because if we don't win, we don't get to govern and we don't get the pencil. I mean, it's that simple to me.
So, Brian Kemp, I've interviewed him a number of times. He's spoken at conferences in the past, a number of them. This time he brought a prop, a number 2 yellow pencil, and he said Joe Biden right now has the pencil. Joe Biden gets to write the regulations. Joe Biden gets to write the rules. If we don't find a candidate who can win the general election in November, we don't get the pencil, and we don't get to turn it upside down on the eraser side and start erasing all the things that Joe Biden wrote, all the things, all the regulations Joe Biden did. It was a very funny thing to see him trot out the eraser, to bring it out, to try to highlight the Kemp agenda. He also was very adamant again that the election in Georgia was not stolen. One more bit from Brian Kemp that he wanted to make about the difference between Democrats and Republicans, the GDP numbers between blue states and red states.
This is what you're seeing with people that win the election, like the Republican governors have in the South. We've been able to govern. We're competing against each other. Several weeks ago, it was announced that the GDP in the South had outpaced the GDP in the Northeast for the first time ever. There is a reason for that. It's because we're governing, because we have good business policies, because people want to move here where they can, experience liberty and freedom, and they have political leaders and governors and legislators that are fighting for their kids to be in the classroom when you have other states that are locking them down and keeping them out during COVID a year longer than us, not having them indoctrinated when they're in the classroom, doing something about crime, doing something about gangs. And no one's done more in the country at the state level working with our legislators than Marty Kemp in ending human trafficking in our state and helping the victims. All those kind of things we're able to do because we won, because we have majorities, and because we can govern.
Brian Kemp, the governor of the state of Georgia, sat down with me at the gathering and talked about some of the differences. He came back at the end with Governor Glenn Youngkin of Virginia. So let me pull back the curtain a little bit. Maybe I shouldn't say, but I'm going to. The Youngkin team was very concerned. They didn't want him to be perceived as running for president. Now, if you know the campaign season, he really can't run for president unless he fires something up very soon, which he's not going to do because ballot access rules in the various states. He didn't want to be perceived as running for president. He's focused on winning the Senate in Virginia, the state Senate. So he asked for Brian Kemp to come back with him to kind of tamp down on he's coming as a presidential contender. But all that did with the members of the media who are obsessed with the election was, oh my gosh, they're announcing a ticket on stage. You should have seen the reporters kind of faded out of the way. Some of them were stepping aside, and then at the end of the day, they all swarmed back into the room, breathlessly awaiting the announcement of a presidential ticket. And out of the gate, I tamped down like, hey, Governor, I feel like I should apologize to you, all these people here wanting to engage in speculation about something you're not engaged in. It was kind of a funny moment. Now, we also had Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis, Chris Christie, Vivek Ramaswamy pressed a lot of people, other than some of his foreign policy stuff that kind of fell flat in the room, but a lot of what he said resonated. I've got the audio on that, and we'll get to that when we get back. Right now, I want to tell you about the Eden Pure Thunderstorm 3-pack. I had it in my hotel. I did not have to use it. Now, I was thinking I may have to use it because I had people come to my room for cigars, but I had a balcony, so we were on the balcony, and it never stunk up the room, thank goodness. But I had the Eden Pure. I was prepared to eliminate those odors, so they would have never known. It would have worked. I know. I've used it before. You can get 3 of them for less than $200 at EdenPureDeals.com. You put in my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, on the front page of the website. That's what you do, EdenPureDeals.com. Discount code is Eric. You get 3 of them. They're an air purifier, so they get rid of dust and pollen, all that, but they also eliminate the nasty odors, the bad odors, the foul odors, the smoke odors, the litter box odors, the pet odors, the musty odors, the dead animal in the wall odors, the body odors, you name it. They wipe out those odors. Rental cars, you can plug it in with a USB port, or you can plug it directly into the wall. EdenPureDeals.com is the website, EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is Eric. You can hold these things in your hand. I keep one in my travel bag, and they just work. EdenPureDeals.com. The discount code is Eric. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson here across the nation. 877-973-7425 is the phone number. Reviewing some of what happened on stage at the gathering this weekend here in Atlanta, where I bring together my radio listeners from across the nation. And, you know, we don't just do it in Atlanta. We've done it in Charleston, South Carolina. We've done it in Denver, Austin, Texas, New Orleans, Jacksonville, Florida. We try to spread it around, although we decided we would never do it again, that this would be the last one. And then we decided it went so well, I guess we're doing this again next year. So we are. Looks like we will, assuming we can get our sponsor buy-in, it sounds like they're ready to go with us. We'll be making this an annual thing for the radio show as it has been. And, you know, can I just, I want to say something very personal for just a moment. I couldn't do this conference without Charlie and Philip. Charlie in particular just did all the heavy lifting for it. Worked with the sponsors. I had to reach out initially to make contact to try to get them on board and the speakers that we wanted. And then he took off with it, ran with it, put it all together. This year I did so little to build it compared to prior years. He put even the schedule together, which things I've done in the past, I couldn't do it without him. And with Philip, who was able to be there and curate video and audio and do interviews with candidates on non-political stuff. If you follow me on Instagram, you saw Philip stealing my iPhone, doing candidate interviews. The candidates love that more than being on stage, just the short non-political things. My assistant Candace as well, who helped so much. I couldn't do this without him, but I got to say something. So, you know, I've been working at WSB Radio, is my flagship station, and my show for a long time up until last year was a local show, and it wasn't a national show, but I had a national platform. I was on Fox, I was on CNN before that, I was running Red State and then the Resurgent, but this is the first year that the senior management at Cox came, and that meant so much to me. And I know it's hard to explain, even like when I'm trying to get on radio stations, trying to explain what it is that I do, because it is so different from a lot of what conservative talk radio does. And I, as a result, because it is that unique, am able to build relationships and bring together presidential candidates, governors, senators who might not otherwise come for just your standard red meat, give the RNC talking points conservative radio show host. They were able to come, and it was just nice to have my bosses come and see for the first time, this is the sort of thing that I uniquely can do in talk radio. As so many people want to write off the format and claim it's dying and go get a podcast. There's so much there to see. Real quick, let me just tell you this, and I want to play you some more audio when we come back, but if you want to see the candidate interviews themselves, if you text Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, I adjusted it so the very top link is to the gathering page on YouTube, and you can see organized every single individual interview of everyone I interviewed. You don't have to sit and watch all 16 hours of it. You just pick the one you want and play it. Just text my name, Eric, E-R-I-C-K, to 33777, and I will send you back the link. Click that top link, and that will be it. If you want to see the stolen iPhone videos, you click on the Instagram link, and you can see all of Philip's interviews with some of the candidates there as well when he stole my iPhone. This hour of the program brought to you by First Liberty Building and Loan, wherever you are nationwide. Reach out to First Liberty and see if they can help your business grow. If you're buying a building, buying a franchise, expanding a franchise, you need $250,000 or more. That's what they do. Go to firstlibertyga.com, get their contact info. Spend 10 minutes with them, see if they're a fit for you. Firstlibertyga.com, firstlibertyga.com. When we come back, I've still got to tell you about Nikki Haley and Chris Christie and Vivek Ramaswamy. I've got audio from all of them. They said some really powerful things. Vivek wanting to gut the federal bureaucracy. He had some fantastic insight as a businessman on how you do that. There is a report out, you should know, from ABC News claiming that he surprised his friends by getting in and told them all it was to stop Ron DeSantis. That's buzzing out there on the internet. We'll get into that as well. And the Kamala Harris reboot. How many times can one person reboot their campaign?
Judy was boring.
Hello.
Then Judy discovered ChumbaCasino.com.
It's my little escape.
Now Judy's the life of the party.
Oh, baby, mama's bringing home the bacon.
Whoa, take it easy, Judy. The Chumba life is for everybody. So go to ChumbaCasino.com and play over 100 casino-style games. Join today and play for free for your chance to redeem some serious prizes. ChumbaCasino.com. No purchase necessary. Void where prohibited by law. 18+ terms and conditions apply. See website for details.